Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is to please discuss the relationship between being a codependent. What does that really mean, and how does that relate to the triggers that I've been discussing in the previous video? We've been getting a lot of viewer inquiries and emails on that topic. So thank you so much for all your support. And I'm glad that this is making sense. I'm glad that things are falling into place and you're seeing things a little bit more clearly and being able to come to balance with this. And before we get started on really a discussion of really how does codependency and triggering become kind of like a life of its own outside of you, we're going to zoom in and dive into that. But before we get started, I just want to give a super huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. Thank you so much for your contributions, your support, and your well wishes. It is so great to hear from you, and it keeps me inspired and motivated to continue to develop the content and have and host these discussions and inquiries. So thank you so much. And absolutely positively, if this channel has been a positive resource to you, please do feel free to participate and donate at the PayPal Now button here on the Peace and Harmony About page. It's great to have you. It's great to hear from you. It's great for you to share your situations and your experiences. So let's move forward. Let's get it going. Let's zoom in and focus in on the connection and the relationship dynamic between codependency and being triggered, and how this creates a life of its own, how this makes you to feel uncertain, unhappy, and in a lifestyle that really feels out of control. It's typified and experienced as sort of a feeling of not being in control, coupled with a withdrawing or shutting down. So kind of a what they might call like black and white behavior, meaning there's a lot of intensity to being codependent. There's a lot of passion, oftentimes an emotional charge set up from the limbic system, which then overrides sort of the thinking and dreaming aspect, the prefrontal cortex, which is really involved in decision making, reasoning, planning for the future, and sort of getting things falling together so that you manifest what you want and sort of take you to that next level. Being happy, being able to have accomplishments, being able to have peace, rest, and relaxation without feeling guilty. That's the name thing. Namely, kind of the key foundational thing that keeps codependency in its place is this sort of feeling of guilt for being yourself. Guilt for sort of breaking free and having and experiencing personal freedom, personal happiness, being autonomous, this feeling of independence and enjoying and cherishing the responsibility and as well as the discipline and work that comes along with being independent. So that is sort of foregone and sacrifice, the ultimate personal sacrifice of your personal freedom as a way of coping with a malignant or manipulative individual who may be emotionally abusive, emotionally absent, malignant meaning perpetual and chronically negative, and sort of consumed in a negative shadowing unto others in order to sort of get what they want and consume their life with this preoccupation. So there's a lot of, in the malignant narcissist, there's a lot of obsessive behaviors where they need to always be right, to be in control, to set the terms, to sort of create a rejection that you are not likable. They tend to project this sort of an emotional projection, or if you will, kind of an emotional projectile, emotional vomiting. If you kind of understand that experience, there's a lack of control, just as when somebody has stomach flu and they just have to run to the toilet and they are eliminating whatever virus is that they're expelling. So I do believe wherever you are, all of you have experienced this reaction, this stomach, trying to squeeze out its contents, projectile vomiting, as well as whatever the other end. But this is kind of an emotional, if you equate this energy of like projectile emotional rage that a malignant narcissist will project onto others. In other words, projecting that you are unlikable. There's something inherently flawed with you. you should pay attention and really live in this projectile of negativity, of there's a look, there's an expression to the facial muscles that the subconscious picks up on, and then also has a bubbling to conscious awareness that your independence is not welcome here. You are not to be supported. You cannot be interacted with in a healthy manner, with respect, with kindness, with just basic harmony and neutrality and allowing. That there's this wall that is created by a malignant narcissist, which then others have to react to in order to deal with and exist in a survival basis. So codependency is surviving the ultimate sacrifice and emptying out of your needs and sort of getting in a dissociative state, meaning that it's no longer permitted for you to associate and identify with being happy because there's a constant threat. Something is not done. There is something inherently flawed always. There's an emotional net that people get tangled up in and entrapped and become then identified solely with the needs of others, and sort of a second identification with their self. So it's what Dr. Craig Malkin of Harvard Medical School would call an egoist. So somebody makes their ultimate sacrifice of their needs to take care of that of others. So it's a displacement. They are like emotionally displaced. What do we see in the news often today? People who are displaced individuals, people who are refugees. So they become like a refugee in their own life, feeling sort of out of place. There's something, we're not in our homeland. We're not in our element. We've been forced out. This is the experience of someone who gets codependent and then depressed. Depressed meaning that they're not able to be energized through their own direction. So there's this ultimate feeling of fear, which causes this inactivity or paralysis emotionally, or being stuck or blocked. So there's like a combination of these emotions that create this codependency. And so the codependency, once again, like Dr. David Hawkins says in Power versus Force, it becomes like a counterforce to a negative force within another. So codependency is like a survival mechanism. It can carry you through very difficult situations, and you can interact with life in this, but eventually there's a nagging sense that there's something more, and there's something that you have not worked through or been able to get out in the open. So the codependency is something where people have swept aside their own needs. So it's become so repressed that it no longer becomes conscious, no longer what they see in their life. They no longer kind of see themselves, can be themselves because of this projected, it's all about me and you must only have your eyes on me. So it's very intense, the layers that are involved. And so it's to understand the cause that the codependency, this feeling has been to allow yourself to be subjugated to this treatment. So subjugating meaning I have to tolerate, I have to put up with it. There's never going to be any better. There's a dysfunction that is fueled with a life of its own. And it becomes like there's a shelf life to it. Eventually people begin to feel that there is something more to them. There's something more to life. There's something more that is just calling out for expression and acknowledgement and validation, oftentimes with the very people who cannot deliver that setting. They don't, it's the relationship is so striated, it's so wired into roles that you will along with these people, when they're still in that malignant mindset, it's hard to break free. It's hard to be happy. It's hard to feel fluid. It's hard to feel present. And so this then becomes a trigger. A trigger then is something that is through many layers and many experiences that have been reinforced, where you have felt like that original sort of adulterated individual, where you were either given the look, you were given the command, you were given the emotional abuse, the neglect, and then told that this is it. This is all you will ever fear, is this insurmountable fear or insecurity. And so you can test it, because when you go into certain experiences or relationships, especially when it comes to like moving to the next level of your life, either professionally, like I'm ready for more responsibility, I know that there's something more, but yet when you get there, there's this tendency to feel uncomfortable, that, this unpredictable, a chaos can emerge that you will not know what to do. You will not be able to learn the new skills. You are then relegated to that old role that somebody who is abusive set you in. So somebody who is abusive has carved out an integral place of your identity that you don't have control of as of yet. There is a lack of awareness. There's an understanding that this person sort of is a trauma bond or connected with me into everything. Bear with me one moment. So looking at this, it is to say, I thought my office bell was ringing. It is to say that this role becomes kind of like the disempowered role becomes what is the foundation of you, because it hasn't been aired out. It hasn't been acknowledged. It hasn't been broken through. It's like an part of the uncarved marble, which all you see is a blank. It's like a blank. People feel very blank, very stuck. They can't feel that they're emotionally conscious or can carry themselves in a way that is immune to these barriers, these self-limiting beliefs in various situations. So, for example, you're just entering into a family setting, and then there's this tension because there's this individual who's perpetuating the old role, who serves as a trigger. In other words, they know how to put you in your place before you've even gotten into place. There's somebody who is in control of the emotional climate of how you feel. That is a trigger. Someone who makes a comment, about, where you're at in life. Oh, so you just got a promotion. And then they will kind of give you a sneered look and talk about, remember when, you were struggling, or, remember when this vacation, when you were so unhappy and you couldn't focus and you couldn't have attention, and look at you now. So they're always trying to connect you to something in the past where it's like holding an emotional grudge over you. They're not living in the present. The manipulator, someone who is abusive, will take advantage of certain highs and lows in your life, which are natural and to be human, but yet this person, I know it's like really in depth, but we need to go there. This person is trying to keep arouse or sort of overpower you through this negative force. So you are then as a counter force. But liberating them is to say, this is nothing but designed to put me in a place where I should never be in the first place. In other words, I'm not resigning to your judgment of me. I'm not giving in. I'm not persuaded. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying in. It is incorrect. It is erroneous. I am better and more than that, but that person is afraid to allow it because you could redeem and make them look bad. It makes them feel bad for them to kind of experience this loss of having a place to project their negativity. So the abusive person in your life will constantly use this as an automated dumping ground. So that is what creates then the codependency, which is designed to please them, to help keep you in a disadvantaged state. So it becomes a real sort of dysfunction that needs to be corrected, because it's erroneous thinking to feel that you must placate or concede to, or the word that I'm looking for is conform to the abuse of another. In other words, so you're allowing the abuse to continue by this conformance. So the shutdown phase then stops. Well, I might as well become a slug and become like a nobody. The gray rock method. I am just nothing but a worthless, pile of rubble. Don't interact with me. I'm dumb as a box of rocks, or whatever they're going to call you. So this is identifying a trigger that has set codependency into place. What are more examples of a trigger that is designed to keep you in this lower codependent sort of minimized or dismissed situation? You are at a family event, or you're just, there's a get together, and you're helping one family member in a very productive way, Googling solutions for what's going on in their house or their garage. They might have an issue in their garage. A lot of people in city situations, they have trouble with stray dogs, rats, whatever, and then you chime in and you give in your experience. You shouldn't be focusing on that. You're trying to do something positive, which is liberating you and helps you feel good, to attach to this family member. We're wired for attachment. We are social beings. We are not meant to be in that extreme, chaos where there's extreme intense yelling and then the shutdown. That cycle is dysfunctional. It is part of the defense, it's part of the problem. So you have to focus on the solution rather than living in this problem. So there's this, positive bonding, which is taking place, which is the motor neurons. Here, let me help you. I can assist you. There's real life problem solving. And then here comes another. You shouldn't be focusing on that. You should be focusing on this and this. They're trying to tell you that you're in you're in the wrong when you're not in the wrong. They're, this accusative nature. And then so you just let it slough off like water over a duck's back, like you're exfoliating your skin. It's an emotional exfoliation. Get that dead look, get that dead trigger away from me. I don't need it. It's doing nothing but numb me out. It's doing nothing but causing me to live in question and doubt, and then the depression that comes from this, reactive situation. It's to stop that cycle. It's to stop that reactivity. It's to give the trigger no power. It doesn't have any power. It is stupid. It's dumb. It's malignant. It's manipulative. It's toxic. It's not allowed here. It's plain stupid. It's plain low level mismanagement of people who are positive and can contribute. So really, as people mature, they want to be able to contribute and participate. If you look at any work setting that has high morale, and I really feel that there's a lot of carryover from the roles that are taking place in a family that are mirrored in another individual professionally. So those same dynamics are hardwired. And so they play out until you become aware if they're dysfunctional, to say, nope, I ain't feeling weak in this setting. I'm actually strong in this setting. I'm able to participate in a meeting. My viewpoints are taken very seriously and are contributing to the solution as a whole and are helping profit this organization through your creative input. So that's an example where your soul is allowed to run free and contribute and be recognized and reinforced and rewarded through praise, through acknowledgement, through salary increase, through bonuses, through credits and awards, things that you accomplish when your soul is running free, when you're away from this inhibitive factor. So there's a whole shift in energetic experience when those self-limiting beliefs are dismantled, they are extinguished, their energy is put out, they're literally not identified with, they are made wrong in the heart of good. They are made wrong in the heart of gold. They are seeing that it's nothing more than somebody's immature, insecure, manipulative pattern. And when you show them that their triggers are not valid, are powerless, they don't have power over you, then they no longer have power over you. There's a shift of awareness. There's a shift of feeling. There's an emotional regulation that comes online. Your emotions begin to regulate your own emotions. You begin to experience self-regulation. This is part of the problem that is not permitted or experienced in emotionally manipulative relationships. You are not permitted to self-regulate. You are not supported in that positive. It's very, very important to understand that these abusive relationships are damaging and destructive forces. Damaging and destructive forces, not only to yourself, but to life as a whole. In the big picture, it's like it has huge ramifications, especially for future generations, future impact on moving a organization forward, a job forward, and contributing to society in very big and important and meaningful ways that are part of moving the generations forward. Someone will call it the waking up of humanity, so that humanity can function in that homeostasis, harmonious, regulated manner. In other words, people don't fly off the handle. They don't make flying false accusations. They don't breed and engineer more chaos. They don't breed and engineer more neglect. They don't take for granted people's emotions, people's viewpoints, people in general, the essence of the divine spirit, the releasing of judgment and that distance and isolation that judgment creates. It's no longer living in that family, in that person, in that relationship. There's a whole new life. There's a whole new life energy, chi, emotional feng shui, focus, discipline, lifestyle, decision making, enforcing. All new thoughts begin to emerge and to be felt in the physiology of that organism. It's a very organic experience. It's like all of a sudden you feel like your energy is just released like an eagle. Before it was like a codependent turkey. Now you are soaring. You've spread your wings. The wind is the power beneath you, and it's an allowing. It's an emotional gliding. It's being able to launch and then soar, and to keep that soaring throughout your day. And it's giving you that perspective. It puts your life into perspective once you understand that trigger, and then the correlation and relationship between codependency. And so those two are very connected, like a role, so families, work environments will all function on that, on that system. So especially for people who would rather dish it up rather than take it, oftentimes it's the removal of insecurity that was wrought earlier in life or wherever that began to germinate. It's seeing the power, the destructive power of what it does, and no longer allowing it. It's to learn self-validation, self-protection, self-trust, self-love. It's the allowing that whole energy to permeate your entire torso, really, which has a lot of energy outside of the head. A lot of the manipulation has been done in the head, and a lot of the codependency was designed in the head. So it's allowing that head, or whatever you're called, stinking thinking, to be removed from your day-to-day, and then you're energized and doing. So some people might say it's easier said than done. It's easier done than said. It's to stop the language of manipulation and being abused, and calling and identifying with the victim, and dissolving that, breaking free of those chains, literally, like breaking free of the matrix or structure that it created. It's saying, I am not structured in. I am not wired into life in that manner. It's de-identifying with the victim role, because you're identifying that it's not right. So is writing yourself. It's to say, I am going to do what's right, and having that belief in self, believing in yourself. That belief has to live in yourself. And that is the experience that the abuser keeps you away from, and thwarts you and hinders you from. And so codependency then becomes a role that is adapted. It's not the true self. The codependent is not the true self. The true self is that which identifies with belief, with faith, with believing in self, and then being able to make decisions on the road of what I call positive, orderly direction thinking. It's a whole different set of thinking which embodies the entire body, where the body is filled with a purity and an ease of function. So despite the codependent struggle mentality, which is part of a whole design, which is I have to work hard, I have to struggle, I have to combat, I have to fight. That is the codependent. I have to take care of others. I have to self-sacrifice. It's allowing those priorities to dissolve away to a new priority that embodies a great peace and liberation within the entire body of the individual. So it's like a breaking free in a de-identifying with the role of being less than. I no longer subject myself and conform these low self-beliefs in order for that to continue, if that makes sense at all. So it's a real shift of perspective and valuation. It's not that you give up valuing others, you actually begin to value others more in a broad and vast manner, and because you value yourself and you make space within to be able to experience it. So you're no longer consumed with taking care of others. You no longer make that how you are a value to others. You are a value because you value yourself and your independence and your freedom. And with that, you're liberated to bring in so much more in terms of what really contributes to making you happy and being able to identify and have interests that are not thwarted by the victimization of others. So it's being able to change the inner dialogue. So, now that I'm no longer controlled by the fear of others, I am free to. Now that I'm no longer attached to the insecurity of others, I am free to and I'm liberated to. Now that I'm no longer attached to the projection or the insecurities of others, I can allow them and then liberate myself too. And then you fill in the space and you'll see that your whole set of interests and skills begins to evolve from within. That is the true root of education, which is edukari, which is to bring out. So if you've seen someone who you might admire who's like well educated, it's because they've pulled out sort of the strength that resides within that individual, not as a conforming to others, but because they've been allowed to grow and think expansively and use and tap into that prefrontal cortex, which is not afraid all the time. They can absorb the good. They can take compliments. They can go eye to eye with superiors. They can be able to advance their business to the next level, their happiness to the next level, their self-support to the next level, where then they are attracting support of others, a support system, not one that is designed around fear, but one that's designed around positive strengths, one that is designed around and pivots around belief and positive trust in self, and that allowing sort of that higher order thinking to take you over and liberate you and take you to higher realms. Higher realms essentially meaning where you belong, where you're highly effective, you're highly productive. You're now living the solution. You're now living in the solution. You're no longer, under participating or over participating. You are, self-regulating. You're able to balance things and say, no, that's manipulation. I don't take part of that. I'm able to identify manipulation and not be subject to it. I can identify abuse and not be subject to it. I can identify when people is going off track and I choose not to participate. So there's a new emotional regulation that takes on a life of its own. And you're able to be that individual who you are looking for. That person is within. And then once you get there, you're then able to share and embrace life with that sort of solution within you always. You no longer buckle to manipulation. You no longer bite the dirty rag. You no longer, take the, you no longer take the emotional baton that says be down. You don't grab on anymore. You physically don't accept. You have, that when that projection comes on, that emotional projectile vomiting, you step out of the way. It's no, they miss their target. It ain't you anymore. You step away. It's a literal physical moving of your perspective. So really, when you can become grounded and identify the triggers, you are then able to see really the look up in life. Your perspective is literally lifted. You're literally uplifted in your life rather than downtrodden and downplayed. You begin to embrace your emotional side, your vulnerable side, which the narcissist makes you feel so ashamed of experiencing. The fact that you're trying, the fact that you're succeeding, all these vulnerable things they are afraid to participate in, they are no longer invited to your victory party. If they are to participate, they must be soften up their aggression, their hostility. They must show you the new side. All of a sudden, people, you're getting on their good side. The good with the bad becomes a lot more of the good. And when they try the bad, you shriek away, you do not react, you don't give it any energy. It's allowed to just dissipate on its own like a dud firecracker. Go ahead and dud yourself up for the day, whatever it is. I'm not participating. There's so much more in life, and time is precious. You begin to have a new respect for time. When you're there, you realize you can really seize onto, with choice and direction, the positive. And it's your body, peace, and harmony with you here today. I hope you see the connection. And with that, you are liberated and freed from the change that ensnare in manipulative relationships, such as you see with people who are malignant, narcissist, or psychopathic. Peace out. Have a beautiful day. Please share, subscribe, and donate. Love you.